I am going to discuss 5 factors with you. Number 1, how to approach the SBR examination. In what sequence should you be approaching the SBR's exam? Then I will be discussing something about time management. Then I will discuss something about the answering approach and what are the do's and don'ts of answering an examination question. What are the key words in a question's requirement that you should focus on? Number 4. And number 5, a small message from my side. Now let's start with the first topic, how to approach your examination. If you follow my advice, I would say that you do section number A first in your exam. Do question 1 and question 2 in sequence, that is doing question 1 first and then question number 2, but try to complete these 2 questions within the first 100 minutes of your exams. 100 minutes means 1 hour and another 40 minutes. This will leave you ample period of time to attempt your section B. In section number B, you can do any question first which you are comfortable with. Any question. And I also recommend that you can do a mix and match strategy. I mean, you can attempt a particular requirement of question 3 and then go and attempt, a certain requirement of question 4. That's fine. Remember, your examiner does not care in what sequence you solve your examination paper. So, while you are in section B, you should make sure that you first do those particular requirements of question 3 or question 4, which you are most comfortable with. Now, something about time management. When I talk about time management, I certainly need to tell you a particular thing. Often I've seen this in question number 1 that since students are generally more comfortable with the topic of consolidation, they tend to say too much in question number 1. So they spend a lot more time in question 1 as compared to, how much they should be spending. That's not a good strategy. I'm telling you, it's not a good strategy. I mean, you need to be strict with time. And you need to be strict with time, not only on a question level, but rather on a requirement level. Nowadays, you guys know that nowadays, every question in SBR that comes, it comes with multiple requirements. It will be requirement number 1, part A, requirement number 2, part A, part B, part C. You need to mark your time. You need to allocate your time with respect to specific requirements. In your exam, you have 1.8 minutes per mark. So please make sure that you calculate then and there, the time required to answer a particular requirement and then just stick to it. Be strict on time. Be strict on time. And when I say you need to be very strict on time, I even say that please move on when the time is up. When the time is up, just move on. Your examiner says he knows through empirical evidence of checking so many papers. Often if students spend 5 minutes on a new question as compared to the old question, they tend to gain more marks. So rather than taking 5 more minutes to answer the same question that you were previously answering and dragging on your answer, it is a much more wise strategy that you jump onto a new requirement and you might be able to score more marks in your SBR examination. So empirical evidence and examiner's research has shown this. Then I always say in my classes to every student who is doing SBR in particular, my strategy is always to read the question slow but answer it faster. The more slow you read the question, the better you understand the question and its requirement. And then you'll be in a position to answer it quickly. So this is my strategy for approaching a particular answer in SBR. And now let's talk about how to make sure that you answer a particular question appropriately. What are the things that you need to consider? I mean, always try to make headings. Always try to make headings. Whenever you can, try to make headings. I understand that in not all questions you'll be able to make headings. But if your examiner has bifurcated the question into multiple areas, then it's always wise that you make up headings and then deliver your answer. For example, in a particular scenario, if your examiner talks about impairment and discontinued operations separately, so if the cases are separate, it is wise that you make up a heading for impairment and a separate heading for discontinued operations, and that would bring clarity to your answer. In order to enhance the chances of clarity, I suggest that you leave some space between the headings so that it is clear that these headings bifurcate the answer. So your answer basically looks more sorted out than before. Always try to refer separate workings and make sure that for any complex calculations that you do, these complex calculations can refer to, while you're calculating goodwill, for example, or if you're calculating gain or loss on subsidiary, on disposal of subsidiary, or maybe, exchange gain or losses, it is advisable that you prepare a separate working and then cross-refer it into the body of your text. Doing complex calculation and embedding them in your written text is not advisable. It is not advisable. It will not bring clarity to your answer, and you will keep on dragging the answer. It will not help you. All right. Continuing with the answering approach. Often, I've always said that you do not need to write your answer in SBR in the form of bullets. But I would like to explain my point of view. You see, just simple bullets are not advisable. Rather, you can, if you are comfortable with using bullets, you can use extended bullet points. For example, you can write an answer, with a one-liner bullet. Or you can, bifurcate your answer in the form of bullets, but you need to make sure completeness. You need to make sure of completeness in your answer. You can make extended bullets. And how do you make sure that you are correctly making extended bullets? You need to consider these two sub-points. Please make sure that you properly reference the particular IAS or IFRS which is implicated in the question. So for example, if you have the case of IAS 23 borrowing cost, don't just write that in this case IAS 23 is applicable, but write the whole thing. According to IAS 23, borrowing cost which is incurred for the purpose of acquisition, construction or production of a qualifying asset is supposed to be capitalized. In this case, blah, 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 blah. So please make sure that you ensure completeness in your answer. Even if it is in the form of extended bullet points, please make sure of completeness. And second, you need to refer to the case study. Often what students have been doing nowadays is they are trying to just copy paste the case study. I'm not asking you to copy paste the whole case study into your answer. This will make your answer lengthy, but you will not be scoring good marks. It is completely not advisable to copy and paste the question itself. What I do recommend is that you should refer to the scenario, refer to the situation that the examiner reflected in the question. There is no sense in replicating the question, but if you reflect on the situation which was there in the question, you will always get good marks. So in this particular case, the finance director was incorrect with regards to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is how you approach an answer. And when I talk about the ethics question in particular, I recommend that you always try to add a particular point which talks about why the accountant would be motivated to follow a certain act. So for example, you would highlight that the accountant's act is motivated by self-interest because his remuneration is based on profit-related pay. Or for example, you can refer to any familiarity threat or any job security threat which the accountant may be facing, and that's why he's motivated to follow a certain act, whether good or bad. So please make sure that you try to add this while answering your questions in SBR. Now, I would like you to focus on these 6 words which are often used in SBR's examination requirements. Whenever an SBR question requirement includes the word advise, whenever examiner asks for your advice, examiner is asking for a recommendation. And whenever you are providing a recommendation, you need to properly explain with logics why something is more appropriate, and that is always the case. You see, in my previous slides, I was trying to explain you that you should be attempting section A in sequence, and I gave you a logic for that. Because I think that if in the first 100 minutes of your exam, if you are done with section A, you will be more comfortable in attempting section B in the remaining time. So that's a better strategy. I'm giving you a logic, for my advice. So, people or examiner would always like your advice if it is backed with logic. So always try to come up with, something which provides for an explanation why something is more appropriate. The next keyword in an examination's requirement would be to analyze. Remember, guys, analysis can only be done on a particular piece of information which is already not sorted out. If the situation is already sorted out, your examiner would ask you to discuss the situation, or your examiner would ask you to comment on the situation, or your examiner would ask you to particularly explain something. Whenever there is an analyze requirement, first you need to break down the data. You need to sort out what implications of IAS or IFRS or ethics or something else is there in the scenario. So first try to break out the whole scenario, and then make sure that on each and every scenario you examine it very carefully. It's not examiner, it's examine. Or you explain each part of the sorted out information. So for example, there is a particular case study in which your examiner has, talked about deferred taxes, revenue from contract with customers, and maybe discontinued operations. And all of the information is jumbled up into a particular case study. If the requirement, asks you to analyze the situation, please make sure that you first sort out what are the implications, what are the different implications. And then maybe you can provide separate headings for each of the implication and then discuss it. Please make sure that whatever you analyze in terms of whatever breakdown that you make in your mind or on a rough paper, you please make sure that you talk about everything. Explain or examine each and every part of whatever you have sorted out. If the examiner provides for a comment scenario, then please provide your opinion. And you can also include criticism in that. You see, whenever you are commenting on a particular activity, always sometimes you start up with criticism. So for example, if I'm trying to convince you of a particular act, I would first start criticizing the act that you should not be doing. So for example, if I want you to be honest, I would first try and explain that what could be the consequences of speaking a lie. And then when I've convinced you about the criticism, then eventually I would prove my point and then say that please follow this approach. Please be honest about everything. So that's the strategy when there is a requirement of comment. Then discuss. Whenever there is a discuss requirement, please try to come up from multiple perspectives. I mean, you can talk about pros and cons. You can talk about different perspectives. You can talk about different approaches. If you can, for example, you can say that if the accountant's given treatment is followed, XYZ will be the implications. However, if you follow the correct accounting treatment as outlined under IFRS 16, XYZ would be the implication. This strategy of commenting into multiple perspectives, that if this happens, this will be the outcome. If this happens, this will be the outcome. This type of strategy can be of particular use if you get a requirement on APMs in particular. So definitely this strategy is helpful. Yeah, if you get a requirement of compare, then please try to sort out the information. And whatever two or more pieces of information that you have been provided, try to talk on the features that resemble, that have resemblance, or the differences between the two facts. So whatever is common between two scenarios, you talk about it, and whatever is different between two scenarios, you talk about it. Yeah. Whenever there is a requirement of explain, remember, explain triggers detail orientation. Whenever there is the requirement of explain, I always suggest that you do not do your answer in the form of bullets, even extended bullets. Go in detail. Yeah, you need to come up with detail orientation. Write the whole standard, write the whole implication, write the ins and outs of a particular situation. Go in detail. And that is what an explanation requirement wants from you. Okay. Now, guys, I've got a message for you. Now, guys, a short message from my side. Guys, you have been wonderful. You have been wonderful, and I would like to acknowledge the amount of efforts. All of the students around the world, you guys have put very good effort into your studies, and I would sincerely like to acknowledge it. It has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure of guiding you towards this, challenging path. Challenging, but yet it's fruitful. Some final tips from my side. Please make sure that you organize your answers very well. Please make sure that you pay good attention to the marks distribution as we just discussed. Remember that as you step into the exam room, remember the countless hours of study that you have spent. Yeah, the discussions, the practice that you've invested in, the live classes that you took, the WhatsApp chats that you had, please remember all of that, because you need to trust in your preparation. You need to trust in your preparation, and move into your examination with confidence. Your confidence will make wonders, I'm telling you. Confidence will make wonders. You cannot even imagine how many times I've taught this subject, and every time I teach this subject, I've always seen that students with a lot of confidence always score well. Now, these are some tips from my side. You see, in return, I do not need anything from you. It was a very good opportunity for me even to have a say with you guys. Although I humbly ask that you might want to put referrals on me, but if you want to, but humbly speaking, our relationship was not only limited to the classroom. Our relationship should stay beyond this classroom. I would like to meet you all someday, being very much successful, even more successful than I am, being in good positions, humbly helping the world, humbly helping the humanity. And I would like to wish you a prosperous career ahead. We'll inshallah celebrate your future achievements together. And that is all from my side. Take care. Allah Hafiz.